tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with yours truly, the old salty dog, and from beautiful Welaka, Florida, the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Mr. Ted Yoho. Top of the morning to you, sir.
Same to you, John, and good Monday morning to you. It is beautiful here in Welaka. We don't want people to know about this place because we've got one traffic light in town, and that's all we want.
Yeah, well, I hear you. I hear you. Well, before we get started, I just want to tell everybody to make that call. Call Freddie. Make the call. You'll see it up there because we need people to like what we're doing, share what we're doing, support what we're doing, sponsor what we're doing. And we've got a new sponsor just this past week, Archer Automotive. Tell us a little bit about them, Ted.
Archer Automotive is a place you can take your vehicles to. You can trust them. They do quality work. They get it out in time. And they're just honest people. They're good people. And I highly recommend them. When I was practicing veterinary medicine, they did my car, my truck, my veterinary vehicle, my kids' cars, my wife's car. And I can't say enough about them. I've referred a lot of people to them, and they all come back raving about Richard Fiegel and his family. And that's where you need to go.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about May Day. You know, I've been captain of a few boats in my day and everything. And the one thing you don't want to hear is May Day, May Day, May Day.
That's right.
But I think it's actually appropriate to what the country is going through right now, because it is kind of a May Day. And, schools, they had this May Day celebration this past weekend, and schools planned lessons, rallies, and trips after Chicago Public Schools and Chicago Teachers Union reached an agreement to make May 1st an off-civic day of action. So in Chicago, they literally declared a holiday around May Day, and schools were out so that teachers bused students to these rallies. And keep in mind, I know you know this, Ted, but May Day basically is a communist holiday.
It is. You know, that's the thing. And that's, John, this kind of goes to the point of our show. Why we're here. Why we're here is to educate people, to motivate you and activate. This is a wake-up call, what's going on in this country. And I know you've got several good notes that we're going to go through, illustrating how there's this communist push in our country. It's beyond socialism, folks. This is pure communism. And May Day is a workers' party celebration around the world. And when you hear that word workers' party, that's communism. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I want to go back to the Obama administration. When Obama was in there, one of the most visited person to the White House was the head of the SEIU, Service International's Employees Union. It is a worldwide workers' party platform. The NEA is part of that, or they work hand in hand, the National Teachers Union. So these are the people that are putting these things on, that are tearing at the very basic constitutional fabric of America. A free constitutional republic is who we are. And for these people to be in this country and doing this it's treasonous in my view, but it'll be up to the public to decide that. And the way you decide that is at the next election. We've got to get these people to say, this is not going to happen in this country. And I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you've got a lot of other things that are going to talk about this.
Well, one point I want to make, and this, I wish I could say it surprises me. It really doesn't. It upsets me a great deal. But apparently,
it should upset everybody, John. I mean,
well, you're right, Ted. But this thing in particular, in Chicago and apparently some other places, they literally had teachers taking school buses and high school kids to these rallies So the kids were out of school. They were obviously using public funds with a school bus to take them there. I'm sure these teachers didn't take a day off. They probably got paid, but
Oh,
they
you know they
literally
got paid.
bus teacher. I mean, they bus students down there. Can you imagine for a second, Ted, if a group of teachers that were Trump supporters actually took a school bus and took kids out of school and bused them to a Trump rally? It would literally be the end of the world as we know it.
Oh, it would be. And so somebody needs to be held accountable for that. And I hope the Justice Department goes after, or Linda McMahon with the Department of Education, to go after these school districts that did this and make them pay that money back, and fire anybody that authorized sending students on public transportation school board money to go to a communist rally in America. I mean, these people, they need to be tarred and feathered. And, this stuff cannot go on. And the American people need to get informed about this, educated, and they need to become activated, motivated, and activated to say no more in this. I mean, you got Chicago where the kids can't even read at the grade level. They're years behind the grade level that they're supposed to be, and they're spending money on garbage like this. Give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, there is literally no public school system that is doing really well. Florida actually does better than most, but none of them actually do that well. Even here in Alachua County, where we're right here, I am at least, at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. I should mention that from time to time, which is a sponsor of our show, and you'll see an ad from them later.
The
We're
legendary
literally in,
Steve Spurrier.
well, right now, Ted, when I come from where I live in Hawthorne to here, I drive pretty much right past the University of Florida, which is, a
Sure.
higher education. But the reality is, even in Alachua County, which is noted for pretty decent schools, the dropout rate is roughly about 40%. They never talk about it, but I'm talking about kids that are eligible from kindergarten through 12th grade that actually make it to 12th grade and graduate. About 40% of them that start school don't actually do it. And this is in one of the best educational systems in America. It's inexcusable, but it's happening everywhere. And don't even talk about places like L.A. or in Baltimore, where literally not one single student, Ted, in high school as at grade point leverage. Not a percentage, not one last year.
And this is something, Florida does have a pretty decent education system. When I was in Minnesota, when I moved down here in third and a half, fourth grade, I was like 2 years ahead of Florida schools. Florida has increased, and obviously Minnesota has gone down because they decided to put in learning centers. And but when you look at the United States as a whole and you compare it to the countries that are succeeding, there's a score called the PISA score, and that's a worldwide educational score where they grade country by country. We have been steadily falling for the last 15 to 20 years. And your future is based on the education of your future workforce. And so you see the writing on the wall, folks. We're in the decline of an empire. You can call it an empire or, a world power, I'll say. And if we don't change course, and if we don't change course quickly, we're going to be dictated by somebody else. And China's leading the pack right now. And I'm not real keen on learning Mandarin.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, I saw some interviews with some students in Chicago, and they literally, Ted, didn't even know why they were there. They could not define what even socialism is. Socialists, they were holding signs. They had no idea. And here's the thing. I don't really blame the kids for jumping on the bus and going there, because when you're like 14, 15, 16 years old, you're just kind of going with the flow to a certain extent. Now, my parents would have had a real problem, and I come from a long line of school teachers, so there's no way they would have allowed that to happen back in the day, and there's no way they would have taken kids there. But it's hard to blame the kids because they're just kind of going along, getting along. It's the adults that are the issue.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. It's the teachers that are supposed to teach kids the way to go and prepare them for the future are the very ones indoctrinating them into communism in America. They need to have their credentials pulled. They they need to be, I don't want to say run out of the United States, but they need to hunt for another job. I'll say that and keep it at that.
Absolutely. Well, as I say, I don't really blame the kids, but they have no adult leadership. They really don't. And what they have is bad. It's just bad. And I'm painting with a broad brush. I'm not saying every parent is bad, but when you look at the leaders, I want to play a video. This is the mayor of Seattle, and we talked about her before. She is a hardcore liberal, but she's not the sharpest bulb in the box by any stretch.
Yeah.
But she was asked about these because they're enacting like a millionaire's tax out there. And quite a few of the millionaires out there, CEOs and stuff like that, have decided to leave, like they're voting with their feet or their jet airplanes. But she was asked about this over the weekend in an interview, and let's look at her response, and then we'll turn it back to you, Ted. Check this out.
Yeah, this is a real good one
here. That leave
here.
our state are like super overblown, and if the ones that leave, like bye. I think the claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are like super overblown.
Ted, what do you think about that?
I think she's going to have a wake up call. She thinks that's kind of cute saying that. People they'll vote with their feet. They'll leave their feet and their pocketbook. And we're already seeing that mass exodus. You look at the growth of Florida and Texas. You look at the decline of New York. You look at the decline of California, and it's happening in Washington. Jeff Bezos left Washington. Zuckerberg left Washington, and they're saying no more. So these people thinking they're going to confiscate people's wealth and go after it in the name of creating fairness and equity and inclusion, Ward's favorite words. They're on another planet, because it's not going to happen here in America, but only if people become educated and activated in this. If we stay complacent, this will happen, and you'll be like the frog that gets boiled in the pot and said, "Man, how did I get into this pot? Why didn't I not jump out?" Because you didn't pay attention.
Well, we're talking about out in Seattle, but I want to switch gears real quickly, because tomorrow starts early voting in California. Tomorrow starts the early voting period. The primary is roughly 2 or 3 weeks away, something like that. So,
and that in itself is a joke. I mean, that needs to go away, the early voting. You need to vote on the day you're supposed to vote, or miss it.
Well, out in California, they have a chance. Right now, I think his name is Steve Hilton, who has been endorsed by President Trump, and he was a CNN personality. He's a former English citizen, now U.S. citizen, and he's running for governor. Apparently, he's leading by a couple of points, and of course, this is the one that Swalwell, they booted him out of the race. But I'll just tell people out in California, it's kind of now or never for you guys. You have a real chance to change the direction of that state. Will they? I don't know.
I don't know, John. I mean, this is, I just cannot believe Eric Swalwell and Katie Porter are your top picks, along with Javier Becerra, who is another socialist. I served with him in Congress, and just a political hack. And so, yeah, vote for somebody that'll change the course of the direction of California for the better. Wake up, folks, please.
So you got a chance. Take advantage of it. If you have relatives or friends out in California, tell them to wake the heck up, because it's now or never for them right there. But,
we're in a battle. We're in a battle.
Talking about that mayor of Seattle laughing, of course, we've played quite a bit in the past of Mandami in New York, and how he back on tax day was talking about this gentleman, Ken Griffin, of I believe it's the Citadel Company. The dude is
Citadel.
Just keep in mind, this guy, Ted, is worth north of $50 billion. And Mandami talked about basically not caring whether he ran him out of town. And we talked about it on a show last week that there's a multi-billion-dollar project that this Citadel is looking to finance in New York City.
$6 billion. Yep.
That would bring thousands of construction jobs and ultimately revitalize a whole area of New York. But Mandami's talking about getting rid of him and all that. Well, Ken Griffin came out and talked about whether or not he's going to leave and socialism and all that. I'm just going to play a short clip of it and we'll come back and talk about it. Check this out.
New York. Here's the real question. Is New York going to put their fiscal house in order and run itself from a position of a strong government that's pro-business? Or are they looking to play, why do the Americans think we can do socialism?
Now, Mamdani's team pushing back slightly on the comptroller's report that estimates that revenue generated from the...
Well, Ted, he asks a great question in that he goes, what is it with Americans embracing socialism, basically? I mean, it is insane.
It really is. And, I hope he does pull out of New York. And go back to AOC when she got in there and she stopped Amazon from bringing in 26,000 jobs into a underserved area as far as good employment. She ran them out by her liberal rhetoric that she was going to go after the wealthy. All these people were taking advantage of people, keeping people broke. And Mandani's doing the same thing. And I think the best way for people like Citadel, of course, they'll make their own decision, obviously. When you're worth $50 billion, you can do that. But I think I would love to see him have the brass to say, you know what? I'm not doing that because I'm sending a signal to other wealthy people. We're not going to play your games. We're not going down the socialism path. $6 billion project, 6,000 construction jobs, 15,000 permanent jobs. Look at the tax base that would bring in over the next 5-10 years. And what they're doing, they being the Madamis, the lady out in Seattle, they think they're going to tax the wealthy and bring in all this money. They're not going to get half of what they think. And then the other people are going to get smart and wake up and say, the heck with this, I'm going home. And, we've got people like Neville Roy Singham to thank.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've made this point before, and then I want you to talk about Mr. Singham. But I worked in Manhattan in the mid-'80s doing construction work. And I can tell you, these big jobs, people talk about the billionaires and all that. But what I saw really benefit from them is a lot of mom and pop bodegas and coffee shops and all that with the construction workers. Then when the workers are actually employed by the business there, it revitalizes a whole area. There's a lot of money changes hands directly in those neighborhoods around those projects.
If people would just take a moment and look at like a big industry like that, you build that, you've got the guy using the nuts and bolts for the girders or the nails or the screws for the studs and all that. Somebody's got to deliver that. All right, the guy that delivers it gets it from his job. So that guy buys it from a manufacturer that does something else, and it's a whole network, a whole environment, culture of people supporting that. And then you've got the food vendors, the guy that drives the food vending truck, the guy that delivers the propane, or it's a whole network of things that happens that everybody benefits that are willing to work. Nobody's saying, oh, poor me, that guy's making more money than I am. Carolyn and I worked 2 and 3 jobs all of our lives until we got to a point where we could wean it down to one. And that's the American way that I grew up with. And I just don't understand these people that have been raised on this. Do you want to go into Roy Singham right now?
Yeah, let me kind of set it up here. Because this, it was billionaires. They're protesting on the May Day billionaires. But apparently, many of the major organized rallies are paid for by other billionaires. They just happen to be leftist billionaires. And this guy, Neville Roy Singham, he apparently sponsors quite a few of these May Day rallies they had the other day. Tell us a little bit about him, Ted.
Let me tell you about Mr. Roy Singham. Started a consulting business in 2019 with partners in the propaganda apparatus of the Chinese Communist Party. The partners are co-owners of Tongren City, which is a province somewhere over there in Guizhou. Singham, a socialist, is a benefactor of the far left causes and an admirer of Maoism. Um, he was his parents were Sri Lankan, and in his youth, Singham was a member of the League, and he's not black, a League of the Revolutionary Black Workers, a black nationalist Maoist group, taking a job at a Chrysler plant in Detroit in 1972 as an activist in the group. And he was educated at Howard University and an equipment leasing company from Chicago. So he is a dyed in the wool, purebred, 100% communist, funding these organizations, and they need to be run out of America. You've got the Communist Party of China backing these kind of organizations. The May 1st, I don't want to call it a celebration, debacle, taking taxpayer funding school board money where the schools are already failing and busing people, students, to rallies. They don't have a clue what they're at, but they want the numbers there so that the kids feel involved. And this is an assault on American liberty and on our security. And I hope the Justice Department under Trump goes after this guy and everybody like him. And I hope Ken Griffin of Citadel pulls out and develops somewhere else where they want his business.
Yeah, and one of the things that really amazed me, and I guess I'm not surprised, but if you watch some of the celebrations or May Day, whatever you want to call them, all the flags that I saw there were countries that are adamantly opposed to freedom like we love in America. There wasn't American flags. It was Palestinian flags, Iranian flags, all kind of flags there. And all of them pretty much represent oppression of people and oppression of freedom. It's just unbelievable the ignorance that so many people show there. But one of the things, and I want to play this video. This is, to me, it just reminded me, because people talk about like socialism and what's the harm and all these people coming out there and doing that. And I don't know why, Ted, but it reminded me of this old public service ad about marijuana back in the day. This is back when I was like in high school. And
that wasn't you in this film, is it?
No, it could have been, but it wasn't. But this has always this has always resonated with me. Check this out, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Look at this. Marijuana can mess you up. Right. We've been getting high for what, 15 years? Nothing's ever happened. Did I get into all the drugs and start mugging people? Nah, didn't do anything. In fact, I'd say I'm exactly the same as when I smoked my first joint.
Eddie, did you even look for a job today?
No, Ma.
Marijuana can make nothing happen to you, too.
I mean, to me, Ted, that's classic when the guy says, I don't know why they're talking about marijuana. It never caused me to do anything. Well, that's the same thing with all this socialism crap, that you'll end up doing nothing and you'll stay stuck. And you think the billionaire class has control over you now? Wait till they're the only ones. I mean, nothing gets better under socialism anywhere in the world. It never has, and it never will.
Never will. Tell me who's going to a socialist country other than people that are coming from way worse countries, the communist countries, the ones that are under terrorism, or Muslim countries where there's all the conflict in the world. How many people flee to Cuba? How many people are fleeing to Haiti? Give me a break. Wake up, folks.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but before we do, I want to say, make that call. Call Freddie, you'll see up there, because we need you to help us to educate, motivate, and activate people. And, of course, remember our good friends, now a sponsor of the show, Archer Automotive. Take us to break, Ted.
No, we appreciate Archer Automotive coming on as a sponsor, and we look forward to others. And just what we're really asking is spread our website around, our podcast around your friends, to your email list, and let's make a difference in this next coming up election here. The midterms are coming up, and if we don't get this right, it'll revert back to DEI, wokeism, open borders, and Trump will be impeached. So we don't want that for America. And this is about the future of our country that we can pass on to prosperity to the future generations. We'll see you after break.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast. And I want to say thank you to the old ball coach there in the commercial, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, where I'm broadcasting here live from. If you've never been here, it's at Celebration Point off the interstate in Gainesville. If you see the big Bass Pro coming down I-75, it is that exit right there. You owe it to yourself to check it out, because not only do they have incredible food, but the atmosphere here is amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, and the help is good. It's just a good time. It's a good all-around time. Plus, you get to see the memorabilia of the Florida Gator history as far as sports.
Well, Ted, when we went to break, we were talking about the, quote, May Day celebrations. And as an old salty dog and had my own boats and been out, had a couple commercial boats, still go on the water a lot. The one thing you don't want to hear over the radio is May Day, May Day, May Day, because that means somebody's in trouble. And I think one of the organizations that's in trouble is NATO. I believe that NATO is on the verge, good or bad or whatever, of going away. President Trump announced that he has taken 5,000 troops out of Germany. Now, some of this is a normal kind of rotation, but I think there's much more to it. What are your thoughts about President Trump's reaction? And we'll talk about some of the reasons why in just a moment. But in general, it seems like NATO may be going by the wayside.
It is. When you listen to this speech by the top leader of that, I don't have his name right in front of me right now, but they've raised $250 billion in NATO. The only reason they raised that was from Trump won in 45. He put so much pressure on NATO to say, if you're going to, we're in this alliance, you're going to raise this money. So they've raised the money. So they reached that goal. I mean, there's still some countries behind, but the next part is, are you going to be with us in Ukraine? Are you going to be with us in Iran? And NATO is saying, no, we're not going to participate. So there is a shakeup that's going on. And this is a good thing. I mean, it's growing pains. And so NATO and the Europeans are going to have to decide, are they going to stick with us? Or are they going to side with Chairman Xi Jinping of China, or whoever emerges out of Iran, or Kim Jong-un? There's not a lot of people to choose from. You've got liberal democracies that stand for freedom, or you've got communism. It's your choice, European Union. And I think Trump is right to put the pressure on the Germans because, if you're not going to let us use your bases that we fund and we bring a lot to your economy, we don't need you. You need us more than we need you.
Well, Poland had a recent election and elected a new president, which people said he's like the Polish MAGA guy. But the prime minister of Poland recently, a gentleman named Donald Tusk, he warned that the Western NATO military alliance is in jeopardy of disintegration in the wake of the announced troop drawdown in Germany. So President has threatened to take out more from other places like Italy and some others. What are your thoughts about the troop drawdown in general and what it might mean? and we'll come back and talk a little bit about some of the things that led to President Trump making that decision.
Well, I think the thing you need to look at, John, is what does that signal send to adversarial nations like Putin? He's seeing a weakened NATO, which is something he's wanted. So is that going to cause him to have more aggression and expand further? You already seen the Baltic countries that line him pull out of the landmine treaty, and they're putting in landmines. So is this setting the stage for World War III starting in the European theater? Or is it going to escalate and see China move in there? I don't think you see China move in there, but I think what you're going to see is an escalation of this. And I hope it's a wake-up call where the people of those countries will say, you know what, we're not pulling out of NATO. Our allies are the U.S. They've been here for us through World War I and World War II. And they're not perfect, speaking of America, but I'd rather have them for allies or partners than anybody else.
Well, Mr. Tusk, the Prime Minister of Poland, this is what he said. He said the biggest, most important question, talking about NATO, is if the United States, and get this, is ready to be as loyal as it is described in our NATO treaties. That's a bit rich to me, Ted. I mean, to basically question the loyalty of the United States of America when basically NATO has not kept up its obligations financially and hasn't helped us a bit. When's the last time that NATO actually benefited the United States? And I'm not saying that's their purpose by any stretch, but to imply that somehow they're more loyal to the NATO agreement than we are is ridiculous to me.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. The guy's saying that because he's not challenging NATO, because they've been getting a free ride. These countries, now that they're paying a lot more to it because they see the threat. And for this guy to say that, he's just either ignorant about what NATO is and the alliance and how you're supposed to be a participating member. And it's not just saying, well, we're members of NATO and take credit like, oh, look at me, I hang around with the big guys. There is a responsibility. All those countries that are involved in NATO need a responsibility of shoring it up, funding it, and sticking together as allies and work harder at creating that alliance. And this is where I have a problem with Trump when he took Putin on by himself, saying, well, we're going to end this war in a day and, chastise Zelensky for causing the war, and he started it. This is where he should, and what that did is it pitted the United States of America against Russia. It's not our fight. It's NATO's fight. And this is where I think a misstep he did, he could correct today, is just let's lock arms, and we're saying no more aggression in Ukraine, and you need to bring this war to an end and put the pressure on them. Stop buying Russian oil. And, I think if they did that, you would see a block in the world of liberal democracy saying, enough of this garbage. You're not going to upset the world order that's been steady since post-World War II.
Well, Ted, what kind of led to President Trump talking about this drawdown of troops in Germany, which I think is actually long overdue, but that's another question for another day. But Friedrich Merz, who is Germany's chancellor, he said this to a newspaper the other day. He said the U.S. is being humiliated by Iran's leadership, who suggested the Trump administration is being outwitted at the negotiating table by Tehran. Now, I said on our last show that Iran has two big advantages over the United States in all these negotiations. And one is that they have no armed opposition in the country. Like they have no Second Amendment there. So there's no organized armed opposition internally. And the other
they have no First Amendment either.
Correct.
Or third or fourth, or they don't have any amendments.
And the other is, Ted, that the leadership of Iran, whether it be the Ayatollahs or the Revolutionary Guard, they don't give a hoot about the people. See, Trump, this is what they're missing. Trump is trying to show restraint in Iran right now. He's not being outwitted. I don't believe that in any stretch. He's showing restraint because I'm going to say this and I'll turn it back to you. I heard a ridiculous statement on MS Now. I listen to those kind of
No,
shows
tell me that's not
on the
true.
way in, so you don't have to, Ted. That's part of being the first mate, not the captain. I'm trying to save you from that. But the guy had this guy, David Ignatius, I think's his name. But he's literally talking about how Trump is being outwitted in Iran, and he gave a couple of examples. But to me, it's ridiculous because Trump is not being outwitted. He's showing restraint because he said this, Ted. He said, just like Putin is finding out in Ukraine, that Trump is finding out in Iran the limitations of the military. That is not true in any stretch of the word. Trump could take out, for instance, he could obliterate Iran if he wanted to. He doesn't want to because he'd like to cut a deal with them and he'd like to help the Iranian people. But they criticize Trump for saying he could obliterate Iran. You can't have it both ways. He could do it. He's actually showing restraint and he's getting no credit for it.
Yeah, that's kind of a mixed bag. I don't think we should have gone in there the way we did, especially right before the midterms. I think we should have waited from a political standpoint. But it's another Middle Eastern conflict. Saying that, we're in it. So what do you do? I agree that Iran should not have a nuclear bomb, that you can't trust them. And, you look at the Straits of Hormuz, only 20, I don't want to say only, but 20% of the world oil flows through there. Certainly, we can get it from Africa, from Nigeria is starting to be a big producer, Venezuela, and the United States of America. I say the heck with Iran and Saudi Arabia because they ship their oil through there. And let's start using American energy and other countries and just block Iran out of it altogether. That's what I would do. And certainly we have the firepower. We could devastate that country. But do you really want that moniker hung on you like Hitler has with the Holocaust? I don't think Trump wants that. I don't think Americans want that. Let's just hope there's peaceful resolution to this. And this goes back to NATO and the European Union and our so-called allies. Let's be real allies instead of just bashing what's going on in here, because you look at these countries that have taken all these Middle Easterners in. That's one of the reasons they're not helping, because they're afraid of their internal population that they created by open borders and accepting all these Middle Easterners that have not assimilated.
Well, I want to play a few videos here kind of back to back. Of course, we'll talk about each one as we go. But, it's something about Germany criticizing now President Trump when, if you think in America in general, that not only did we save them from the Nazis ultimately, but we never get credit for this. We could have abandoned Germany after World War II, totally pulled out of there, and they would have been a vassal state of Russia. And of course,
no doubt about it.
And we led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. And people need to understand, you want to talk about socialism, Ted? When the Berlin Wall fell, which way did the people run? East or west? It wasn't like they flooded into East Germany. They were running the other way. But Ted, I want to play this video. This is from Trump's first term, and he's warning Germany about what is going to happen with the road that they're on. Check this out.
Helps the United States project power to the Middle East, to Africa, and I think also that the military cloud of Europe, the economic cloud, the political cloud, also is helpful dealing with Russia. And we look forward to the meeting we're going to have with President Putin, and I think that leaders are also looking forward to your thoughts about the meeting with President Putin later on.
Well, I have to say, I think it's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia. So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries. And then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia, where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia. So we're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate. And the former chancellor of Germany is the head of the pipeline company that's supplying the gas. Ultimately, Germany will have almost 70% of their country controlled by Russia with natural gas. So you tell me, is that appropriate? I mean, I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened.
President Trump in his first term is warning Germany and telling them the ridiculousness of basically turning their energy future over to Russia. I mean, and now they're mocking Trump. It's crazy.
You know, this is something when he was in there and he was talking about Nord Stream 2, that second gas pipeline coming from Russia to hook up to the European Union. And he says, you better not do this. And I'm like, my opinion was, go ahead and do it and suffer the consequences of that. And now you're seeing that. Russia is very brutal and they will cut off energy. Mongolia, I've got a great relationship with. And during the Druids of two winters ago, they cut energy production by 50%. And they have those horrendous winter storms that gets 40, 50 degrees below zero. And they're going to do that same leverage and they have to the European Union. So Trump was absolutely right in this.
Yeah, and I want to play another one. This is another oldie goldie from his first administration. Trump was speaking at the UN, and we just want to play a couple minutes of it, or a couple, a minute or so of it. And I want you to watch the German delegation to the UN and their reaction to what President Trump is saying. Check this out.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers. It has been the formal policy of our country since President Monroe that we reject the interference of foreign nations in this hemisphere and in our own affairs.
And you can see the Germans literally laughing at the president. I mean, what are your thoughts when you look at what Trump said to the NATO organization about the threat of Russia, and then to Germany and all that, and their reaction to it, and combine that with their reaction now?
I think he who laughs last laughs best. They didn't know how to take Trump. They've never had a world leader like that. Everybody else was trying to placate and just get along. Let's just do what we've been doing. That doesn't work, and that's why we had the erosion of that. And he calls them out, and they're not used to being called out. You remember those games, the Rock'em Sock'em robots as kids? Trump kind of looks like that one guy. He's kind of big, bulky guy, but he's doing Rock'em Sock'em robots with those guys, and they needed a wake up call. Obviously, that was back in the first Trump administration. You look at today, about 6-7 months ago, Germany announced they were going to put $1 trillion into their defense budget and help support other nations in loans to build up their defense industry. So it is a good thing overall. They'll look back and say, it was Trump that made us do this.
Yeah, well, Ted, everybody is, and rightfully so, I'm right there with them, worried about the price of gas and fuel in the United States. And certainly that could be, if it remains as high as it is and keeps moving up, could be the deciding factor in the midterms. There's no question about it.
It could be.
But I want to play one more thing from the past, and this is a guy named Brian Deese. He was director of National Economic Council in the Biden administration. This is when Joe Biden was president. I want to play you a brief clip of something he said when asked about the price of gas. Because remember, the price of gas was actually higher during the Biden administration than it even is now. Listen to this, and I want to say his name one more time. It's Brian Deese, the director of the national economy National Economic Council under Joe Biden. Listen to what he says.
What do you say to those families who say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years. This is just not sustainable.
This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
He says it's okay, basically, to
build
pay
a $49 garden,
$4 or $5 a gallon for gas because it's about the new world order, not the American citizens, but the new world order. Ted,
I can't tell you how important that phrase is for people really to focus on that. Prior to Trump 2, the current administration now, everything was moving to the World Economic Forum, where Klaus Schwab, the founder of that, said by 2030, you would own nothing. You would own nothing and be happy. They wanted a one world government. That's what they were pushing for. Jamie Dimon of whatever Bank of America or whatever one he's in charge of, JP Morgan, said you'll either go woke or you'll go broke. So they support all these things. Now that the narrative is switched, and that's not a popular thing to say under the Trump administration, they've all disowned it. They have not let go of that goal. Their goal is still to do that. And a few words on Brian Deese. He is an MIT Innovation Fellow focusing on the impact of economic policies that strengthens the United States industrial capacity and accelerating climate investments and innovation. He was the one that, under Obama, led the Paris Climate Accords. He works for the Obama Foundation. He worked for Biden. I think enough is said on that. He is somebody that wants the one world government. And, the prices were high then. John, I remember when Iran did the oil embargo, I think it was 74, 75. Price of gas tripled, and we were rationed. You could only buy 10 gallons. And the point of this is Iran has been screwing with the world oil supply for over 47 years. How much longer do you want this to go on? Do you want it to get to where you're in the middle of the winter and Iran says, we're going to cut off oil supplies in the Straits of Hormuz? That affects 20% of the world's oil. Or should we be smart and proactive as Americans and say, to heck with you, we don't need your oil. We're going to open up our pipelines. We're going to transport this to the rest of the world. We've got over 150 years of natural gas reserves in our country. We don't need Iranian oil. And if the rest of the world would say, let's just ignore Iran, they'll go away. They'll shrivel up and die. I think that would be the best thing that we could do. But people like this Brian Deese, they're all part of the Obama One World Government, Joe Biden Economic Forum of Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum. And they it's all 100% socialism. If Klaus Schwab says by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy, that's what Stalin and Lenin said in Russia. Everything belongs to the people, the Workers' Party, the People's Worker Party. And this is what the May Day celebration was. I don't want to call it a celebration, this May Day event they had talking about the Workers' Party. It's just a bunch of BS, and it doesn't belong here in America. We're in a free world.
I want to play one more video from the past. This was in 2022, and it's Macron of France talking about, because Donald Trump, love him, hate him, whatever, he's always talking uplifting about the golden age of America, trying to bring us to the best times America's ever had. So if you're a young person and you're debating about which message you want to go with, do you want to go with Trump talking about the golden age of America and the West, basically? Or do you want to go with what Macron says? Listen to him talking about basically this, in a way, new world order. Check this out.
What we are living through is a time of great upheaval. Firstly, because we are witnessing, and not just since this summer, but over the past few years, the end of what we might have seen as abundance. And for those who enjoyed it, it is also the end of a carefree time. Our freedom, the liberty to which we have grown accustomed to in our lives, has a price, and sometimes when we have to defend it, we have to make certain sacrifices as we fight to defend it.
The end of abundance, Ted. That's what he's talking about there, where Trump talks about, freedom, golden age. I mean, all you got to do to see the difference between socialism and freedom like we have is go to a grocery store here or in the Soviet Union. That's really all you need to do. But what are your thoughts about Macron's message versus Trump's message?
He's drank the Kool-Aid. Macron is part of that one world government, the World Economic Forum. Go back to Biden in his first and only, thank God, term. In the beginning, remember him saying, we are entering dark ages. He said that. Jimmy Carter said the same thing. We're going through dark ages. You're going to have to, keep your house warmer in the summertime and colder in the wintertime, wear a sweater, buckle up, which is not a bad idea. But I think we should look at how do we make America stronger, more productive, and a better future for the next generation. You think of Obama's message. You think of Biden didn't have a message. But you look at Trump, the golden age of America. You look at Artemis 2, going back to the moon. Now we're going Artemis 3, where they're going to build a moon base. These things are moving humanity forward. Everything these people are talking about, they look at the world as a pie, John, and the pie is a certain size. And they said, all right, this is the size of the pie. There is no more pie. You can't have any more. So we need to take less out of the pie because everybody needs to eat. That's the mindset of people on the left, like Biden and the Obamas. They don't want you to flourish and, live a great life. Trump and people like Trump, or Ken Griffin out of Citadel, they said, why is the pie only this big? Let's grow it this big. And that's what we should work on, because that's really what innovation is. That's what moving humanity forward is looking how do we make life better, not how do we limit its capacity. And if you think of us as humans, our goal is we want to advance, and that's what we should be focusing on. That's what the Chicago Teachers Union should be teaching their kids, not how to go to a May 1st communist rally. You know what they're doing here in Willaca on Monday, May 7th? I think it's Tuesday. They're having a national prayer day and a flag at City Hall, honoring this country and asking people to come here and pray. We'll be there. Invite everybody else. Come on down to Willaca.
Yeah, and while you were talking, I got to thinking about it.
It's a good thing.
Donald Trump, love him, hate him, whatever. The man has built stuff, has created jobs personally. Forget what he's done as president.
No, he didn't. No, Obama said you didn't build those things.
And one thing Obama didn't do is build anything. They can't even build a library. But think about it. Biden was worth millions and millions of dollars. The Clintons worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Never built anything. Never, if anything, they took money from poor Haitians and all of that kind of stuff. They never built anything. Love him, hate him, whatever. Donald Trump has built stuff, created a fortune from something. We'll close out the show with this, Ted. The JetBlue just went bankrupt, which is terrible. I feel terrible for all the employees, the people that, got stranded and everything else. And now both sides are trying to blame the other. The thing is, what really shows me, you had Elizabeth Warren, when JetBlue was trying to merge with Spirit, or Spirit was trying to merge with JetBlue. It was Spirit that went out of business. I said JetBlue, they're still going. So the Justice Department under Merrick Garland killed that merger. Now, whether that was right or wrong is up to opinion. But Elizabeth Warren came out and bragged about killing that deal. And so did Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary, the Department of Transportation Secretary. Now that the deal has been killed, and Spirit is saying basically that the price of fuel Of course, they're blaming Trump for that. Jet fuel is one of the reasons of the death knell to him. She's blaming it all on Trump and everything else. Now, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But the irony of those two polar opposite statements by her, and here's the thing that really gets me, Ted, and I'll let you close the show out. The jet fuel, we are in a crisis from it. And yes, it probably has a lot to do with what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz and Iran. But think about this. The Democrats have been saying, Gavin Newsom most recently, that we need to be off of fossil fuels by like 2035. It's not possible. Okay, so if anything else, what's happening now awakens us that do we need to get off of fossil fuels? Yeah, at some point. Can we get off of them in the next 50 years? There's no way without some kind of major technological shift. So Trump is waking us up to the reality of the world really right now too.
Well, it really is, because it shows you how precarious everything is. And this is where we need an American agenda on energy or a blueprint. And I've talked about this before, John. If we had a blueprint that said, or an agenda that said America will be energy independent 25 years into the future at all times, and we're going to start in 2 years to make that goal accomplished. That is the agenda of America. Now, Congress, your role is to make that happen. I don't care how you do it, if you can do it all by all green. But the point is, we need to have 100% secure and stability of our energy market. And if we do that, Congress's role is to figure out how to do it. Think of the new monies that'll go into the new development of technologies. You can do hydrogen fuel cells that have zero pollution. You can do methanol from recycling garbage with zero pollution. You can create small nuclear reactors that are safer, stronger, and will last for 50 to 100 years. So you could reimagine how we do our energy, and you could wean off possibly fossil fuels because we use enough petroleum products in our garbage. Everything that's plastic that's thrown away, it can be recycled and you can make virgin plastics out of it. And what we have is a failure of imagination in this country because we want to just keep doing things the same way. It's time for new leadership and a new direction for this country. And until we do that, we're going to have these fights 50 years from now. Well, fossil fuels versus green energy. And that's why we're on this show, to educate people, to motivate them, and let's get some activation, and let's change the direction of America.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we're going to close the show. I just would say, like what we're doing, share what we're doing, support our sponsors. If you'd like to become one, make that call Freddie. Thanks again to Archer Automotive. Take us out, Ted.
Now, we appreciate everybody watching our podcast, passing this around. We really appreciate Archer Automotive coming on, and we look for other sponsors. But understand, you feel free just to donate to the program and help this program stay on the air and spread it far and wide. We appreciate you. Have a great day. Come to WELAC on May 7th for the National Prayer Day and honor our flag and our country. God bless. Take care.
Peace out, everyone.